Good morning, everyone. I feel truly honored to have been invited to these Architect Days, and so many thanks to the Chamber of Architects of Croatia, and a special thanks to Eva for your kindness. Okay, since I was asked to prepare a lecture on the housing context in Barcelona and Catalonia, I have prepared a four-part lecture. Aiming to provide you, I would say, a wide overview on this topic in Barcelona, moving from the problems identification through some programs, also giving you an overview over the legal framework in Barcelona, and I will end the lecture with some real projects on public housing in the city of Barcelona, where I was the chief architect during 4 years. So let me start just introducing you the territory, because we will refer basically on 2 different territories. The city of Barcelona, that is actually a small city with only 100 square kilometers and almost 2 million people, but within a metropolitan area and a regional area with 5 million people living there. And we will shift also into the, here I also talk about Catalonia, the regional area of Catalonia, 8 million people, but you can imagine most of the people concentrate on the central littoral area around the city of Barcelona. Why we say that we are suffering a housing crisis in Barcelona, Catalonia, Spain, probably across Europe? The first figures show that the 30% of the incomes is the maximum recommended as an economical effort for the families. The figures show that there are only the 30% of the families spending less than the 30% of their income right now. Even there are more than the 30% of families that must spend more than the 50% of their income to afford a house. So it means that there are a lot of people that spend all their money on housing, and they have no money for culture, sport activities, of course, holidays. So this is a very serious problem right now. Why is happening this situation? We have an important shortage of public and social housing in Spain and Barcelona and Catalonia, with only around the 2% of the total housing units. For instance, in Barcelona, we have 800,000 main units, and only the 2% are housing, social ones. Over-tourism pressure that is replacing profiles and people, fragile profiles like elderly people or families with children that cannot afford the rental prices and must move to other territories. It's right now one of the main concerns in the city, and many protests coming from the neighborhood movements are right now asking the different administration levels, trying to address the problem. And you can see in this both picture how the over-tourism pressure affects to the housing prices market. On the left, you can see a historical map from 2014, identifying where the different pictures were uploaded into social media. The red ones are pictures uploaded by tourists, and the blue one by locals. You can see where the tourists concentrate in the city of Barcelona, and on the right, you can see where the rental prices are higher in the city of Barcelona. So there is a direct relation between prices and over-tourism pressure. Here I also mentioned before about Airbnb effect among others. And this is the evolution of the rental prices in Barcelona from 2007 and 2008, and how the prices has constantly been increasing despite the Corona crisis moment. And right now, this lines is still going up. We have another important problem that basically we have an unbalanced distribution of social housing across the city of Barcelona. This is because the only way to obtain land to build social housing was through new residential developments. So the new residential developments were mostly concentrated on the periphery. So the 90% of the social housing right now is on the periphery. You can imagine this is a social segregation effect across the city. So this has been also an important issue to be addressed. The problems. The second part probably is the most boring part of the lecture because it's about the legal framework in Catalonia, but I thought it was interesting to give you some main ideas about how this legal framework works in Catalonia. Ire also showed something about that. We basically have two parallel tracks. There is a legal track on urban planning framework coming from the regional law that identify which are the different planning levels from the territorial level till the local plan. And it's important to keep in your mind that it's in this local plan where all the public policies on social housing must be incorporated. So the percentage of new social housing in new developments, the possibility to create a specific zone identifying social housing, or even incorporating new tools like a preemption right. We'll talk about that later, or the 30% rule in this local urban planning document. And parallel, we have the sectorial housing planning. So the sectorial housing planning also has the same different scales from the legal and different laws from 2007 with the right to housing law, the right to housing plan, and different amendments that has been incorporated later. And it's important that we have recently approved a new territorial sectorial housing plan. This is the most important document right now. Is the one who is defining which are the future goals in terms of housing policies, and it's also defining which are the conditions that must be incorporated into these territorial and local urban planning documents, okay? And there is a lower level where the different cities can also develop the goals that are coming from this territorial sectorial plan into local plans, identifying more detailed tools and more detailed actions to reach the goals that are coming from this higher scale. About the different concepts, I've been talking about social housing. When we use the word social housing, we are also referring at the same time, it can be also public social housing. So with the ownership is from the city or from the regional government, but social housing can also be private ownership. It means there is a limited price for sale or for rental. And if we go into the territorial sectorial housing plan, Sere showed also this picture before. Basically, the plan identifies which are the areas with the highest needs in terms of social housing. You can imagine where the population is concentrated is this dark gray color, identifying the most needed area in terms of social housing, areas with a strong and proven residential demand. The plan basically identifies 6 different levels according to the goals that are defined for each of these levels. The plan for these areas with a strong and proven residential demand identify a main goal that is, I think it's for the year 2045. These different cities within this area will provide the 15% of the total existing main dwellings will be social housing. We are right now around the 2%. So this is a huge challenge in order to, in 20 years, to reach the different goals. And the territorial sectorial plan is also providing different tools. Sorry, I don't want to miss this idea. Between this 15% of social housing, the 9% should be for rental and not for sale. Okay? The plan identifies for these highest demand areas some different conditions for new residential developments. For instance, for every new greenfield new residential development, the project must preserve the 50% of the total build floor must be for social housing, the half of the build floor, and for brownfield developments, the 40%. We are coming before this sectorial plan from 30% as an average across the territory, so the sectorial plan is upgrading the percentage that must be reserved on these new residential areas. Okay, and now let's step into the past to recover experience from 2008. You can imagine, considering the date, that it had not a good finish because of the crisis at that time. But I thought it was interesting because at that moment we have a progressive government, a progressive regional government, and the government opened a new program aiming to develop 100 new residential areas across Catalonia. You can see here, trying what sense to balance new residential areas across the different areas of Catalonia. So basically what the government did is to open a call to the city councils and to receive proposals from the territory. And after receiving the proposals, the government identified these 100 new residential areas. There were different categories and even sizes, from smaller ones to probably medium or large size areas with more than 800 dwellings. And which were the conditions? Basically, the regional government provided the documents. So basically, the regional government afforded the elaboration plans and to approve the plans and give it already approved to the city councils to prepare the urban planning duties to be developed immediately. The conditions were basically all these new residential areas had to allocate the 50% of the total housing units as a social ones. And it was also interesting, the program also provided a quality guidelines residential development. Okay, you can see, sorry. You can see here, I had the opportunity to work with the team who elaborated these guidelines for new residential areas in Catalonia, just identifying good practices in terms of urban fabric or residential blocks, just trying not to develop a huge amount of new dwellings or residential areas, but incorporating a new quality criteria in order to produce new urban fabrics with some standards on all of them. So standards on the urban morphology, we could say, with this new blocks catalog. Also working on some issues like landscape or public space treatment. It was a broader document providing some guidelines in terms of urban design, okay? And also providing good examples across the world, like Pukenau in Linz or KCAP development in Amsterdam, providing the different teams that should elaborate the different documents, these new examples to follow. Okay, and let's go to the last part, and probably the one that is closer to me because I was directly working on some of these new projects. You know, in 2015, Barcelona got a new mayor, Ada Colau. It was a woman coming from the right to housing movement as an activist. So housing policies was, for the first moment, a very important issue with high priority profile into the different works that we were developing. Barcelona is not an easy city in order to provide new social housing. Basically, you saw before, a small city with high compactness, high density. So we could say it's an already built city with only a few brownfields to be transformed in the future. So you will see the main challenge was how to create new social housing within this consolidated urban area. We'll tell you about some different new tools. The main goal was to increase social housing units. In 2015, the city has only 7,000 units of this total 800,000 units that the city has. So the main challenge was how to increase as fast as possible this number of social housing units, deploying a wider set of different tools to increase these different units. For instance, of course, building new social housing buildings from the city council, but also buying when acquiring new properties to transform it into social housing, but also mobilizing private properties and private housings in order to create new conditions, new social conditions. Basically, at the end of 2023, there were 4,000 more units already finished at that moment. And last year, this amount increased till 7,000 more. So we could say that in 8 years, it was possible to double the amount of units of social housing across the city. I told you before, we have a problem of unbalanced distribution. You can see these red areas are the land or the social housing is placed in the city of Barcelona. It's important there is an urban planning possibility. You must qualify, you must define a specific zone for social housing. It's a way to protect that this area will be, not forever, but as a legal condition, social housing, so urbanistically recognized. Within these areas that were already planned as a social housing, probably the city made the most important effort building new social housing collective buildings. The goal was not only build a lot, providing a huge amount of new dwellings, but incorporating innovative processes and innovative goals. One of them was to promote cooperative new initiatives like this one, La Borda cooperative project designed by our colleagues, Lacol. It was not a huge amount of dwelling units through this mechanism of cooperative projects, but it was very important because it's providing a new way to understand how should be the collective housing buildings. Most of the residential buildings in Barcelona they don't have directly any collective room to be shared by neighbors, or even the entrance room is a kind of tiny corridor just to get the elevator or the stairs, but there are not places to promote collective life. So that kind of cooperative projects are providing a new imaginary, I would say, of how should be this residential collective building. This is, for instance, the entrance of the building where the neighbors can gather or can meet someone else coming from the street, or children can stay just playing themselves. This is a collective shared room. I remember some colleagues living there during the lockdown. It was a very useful room to develop different collective activities while people that don't have that kind of spaces is not able, or even incorporating new energy control mechanisms in the building, in the south facade, for instance. So the idea is not only improving the affordability conditions, but also incorporating innovative typology solution. Also, innovations in terms of technology. This is a 12 dwellings building promoted by the City Council, and it was designed with shipping containers that were already prepared in the workshop and then arrived into the place and were just assembled as a new building. It allowed to build this 12 dwelling building in just, I don't remember, just 1 year, 12 months. So it was a kind of assembled process into the same place. This is the final picture of this, very, very interesting. Right now there are 2 more buildings built thanks to this new technology, just reusing shipping containers. I think there are some pictures showing which is the distribution where you can identify clearly which are the units coming from these shipping containers. This is a new building that is already finished. There was the idea to incorporate new structure technologies like wooden structure. Right now, this is the highest residential building in Barcelona built with wooden structure. And it's also incorporating a very interesting thing that usually in that kind of public buildings, nobody knows what to do with the ground floor or the rooftop, because the main goal is to provide housing, and the public companies are not prepared to manage with these uses that are not residential, like the ground floor or roof floor. At this project, the designer provided a new ground floor total area that is expected to be used as a public facility for the neighborhood. And on the rooftop, there is a greenhouse to be used by the people living in the same building and to create agriculture or different areas. So in my opinion, it was an upgrading action just to activate also the ground floor and also the rooftop as a collective project, integrated project, also within the different dwellings that are on the different levels. But remember, the most difficult thing is how to provide social housing on those areas that are completely consolidated. And what the City Council did is to approve plan amendment that incorporated this right of preferential purchase or right of preemption right. It means that when there is an agreement between two privates to sell a property, the City Council can match the price and can get the property. So during these years, the City Council spent a lot of money in order to buy different properties, basically on those areas, or otherwise, in this central area, or otherwise would be impossible to get social housing. Many times it was also a strategy to protect some people living there that had the risk to be pushed out from the building because the new owner wanted to increase the rental prices. So it was a double mechanism to protect people living there and also to provide more housing properties across the city. This is the budget evolution through these years, and I think there is a total figure, yes, around 165 million were spent just buying that kind of properties across the city. And this is another important measure we call just the 30% rule. And it's a new urbanistic tool in order to reserve a certain amount of social housing for every new residential building. It means that when you want to build a new residential building of more than 600 square meters, the 30% of this build floor must be allocated as a social housing. It has not been an easy measure, so it arose a huge controversial with developers, you can imagine. Basically, what you are doing is trying to reduce the value of the land and also providing social housing on those central areas where otherwise would be impossible. I think I have here, my apologies because it's in Catalan, but basically the main complaint coming from developers is that measure stopped building action and it's more difficult to build. But we know from other cities that had this measure from many time ago, like Paris or Berlin, that it's working properly. It needs time because it's needed some time to adjust some prices, but at the end, it's working perfectly. Till now, there has been around, 25 new social dwellings thanks to this measure. But the most important thing is these 25 new social dwellings has appeared on those central areas without any social housing before. And this is the last one tool regarding and coming back also to tourism. This is a use regulation plan trying to control the tourist accommodation across the city. Basically, it was a plan that had a first approval in 2016 and a second one in 2021. Basically, the plan identified a central area where it's considered that there is too much tourist accommodations right now. So there is a degrowth strategy. It means that when tourist accommodation closes, it cannot be replaced with a new one. So the idea is to reduce the amount of tourist accommodations of this area. And at the same time, the second strategy is to push new tourist activities and tourist accommodations into those areas where the limit can still be reached in the future. So basically, there is a degrowth strategy in the center and a moderate growth area or contained growth area on those areas. Basically, the idea is to distribute in a balanced way the different tourist accommodations across the city. And okay, You can find all these projects that we developed in these 8 years in Barcelona between 2015 and 2023 in this book. You can also download for free in an English version on this link you can find in the presentation. And that's all from my side. Thank you.